In 2007, every movie studio was trying to get in on the fantasy genre. After seeing the explosive success of Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, and Pirates of the Caribbean, everybody wanted to get in on the fantasy game. And it seemed like a perfect opportunity to adapt one of Neil Gaiman's great works into a film. And that is how we got Stardust. But I'm not sure that would be a lot of his hardcore fans' first choice of what he would adapt into a movie. And so at San Diego Comic-Con in 2007, while on a Q&A panel talking about Stardust, a bold fan asked a question that many people wanted an answer to. When are we going to get a film adaptation of The Sandman? And that's when Neil Gaiman made this statement to his fans. I'd rather see no Sandman movie made than a bad Sandman movie made. But I feel like the time for a Sandman movie is coming soon. That was 15 years ago. See, he goes on to explain that he was really looking for somebody who was the right fit for the project, someone who had the same love for the source material like Peter Jackson did with Lord of the Rings or Sam Raimi did with the Spider-Man series. So it looks like after 15 years, Gaiman finally found his team, David Goyer as an executive producer and Alan Heinberg as a showrunner, in order to adapt The Sandman into a big-budget Netflix series. And the question is it really worth the wait? And in order to answer that question in this review and analysis, I do have to talk about spoilers, so I will be spoiling quite a bit of The Sandman in this review and analysis, so if you haven't finished it yet, please be sure to save this video for later and come back. The Sandman isn't a project that's only been trying to be adapted for the last 15 years. In fact, adaptation attempts date back all the way to the early 90s, with things either not getting off the ground or Gaiman just thinking it wasn't a good fit for The Sandman to be turned into film. But it looks like more than anything, it just took the right time for the comic book series to be adapted more than anything. Because it seems like a television series serves the source material a little bit better than a film series would. So all of the things that needed to be right for Gaiman to really get excited about moving forward was the right team in place, and, even more importantly, the right budget to do the world justice that he felt like it deserved. And in the world where we are all online all of the time, when you have a big budget project you're working on, that travels quickly. And with that, expectations are set, because with big budgets come big expectations. In order to tell the story of the King of the Dreaming, it was going to take a lot of money. And according to MovieWeb.com, we're talking about $15 million per episode type of money. And I think there's certain things that come with the expectations of a big budget project. Big set pieces, heart-thrilling action, the adrenaline rush like you were going on an amusement park ride. The Sandman has some wonderful moments on screen, but it is more akin to going on a slow walk through nature where you're meant to take in its beauty than experience the constant thrill of a roller coaster. But the world, the special effects, the atmospheres, the set pieces that they are able to build all do feel rather believable, and they look pretty good. And while we definitely know it was filmed in front of a green screen and then special effects put over later, it all feels grounded and believable throughout most of the show. However, in the midst of this, I actually think the premise of The Sandman is very interesting and intriguing to a lot of people. Going on an adventure with the King of the Dreaming World as he tries to get his power back by collecting his missing tools is a very interesting premise, and it plays out like a series of crime procedurals almost, whereas Morpheus is a detective trying to find his missing objects. And then in the last 5 episodes, we get to go on the journey as Dream tries to hunt down renegade nightmares and start to solve the mystery of fixing a vortex that is in between the world of the dreaming and the real world that you and I live in, and it is causing all sorts of problems. And it is throughout this journey of Morpheus where the show emphasizes that it really puts a lot of weight on its exposition and atmosphere. I believe we see this strongest on display in episode 4, where Morpheus journeys down into the depths of hell to confront Lucifer so that he can get back his missing helmet. All of the important story advancements in this particular episode are all done through dialogue while Morpheus journeys through a very disturbing atmosphere. Hell is a very unsettling place, as it should be, and you're meant to feel that. And it is here where I feel like the big budget really does a good job of making you feel like this place looks believable, and you can't wait to get out of it. And it is here where you find out very quickly that the Sandman handles its conflicts in a much different way than most conventional storytelling does. It is here where the Sandman puts on display that words matter, especially when they're coming from these celestial beings, and there is a duel between Dream and Lucifer, and essentially it ends with hope winning out, and that is the overall theme and message of the episode. Because when you are done with your 35 to 45 minutes that you're going to put into an episode of The Sandman, it is very clear that the showrunners want you to take away the theme and reflect on it for a little bit. And I think that that's where this show is very strong, but also if it's not resonating with you, it might make it hard to continue on with and stick with it. Some people might find it dull, some people might find it slow, and it is here where I think that the show is pretty strong in conveying its themes through self-contained episodic storytelling. Which makes me really want to check out the comic books because I feel like this type of stuff works even better on the page than it sometimes translates over onto the screen. And The Sandman really fully puts on display the ups and downs of anthology. For the longest time, television was meant to be experienced one episode at a time, really self-contained episodes that tell their own story. And here throughout The Sandman, you have episodes that feel very standalone. But where I think that the anthology-style storytelling is strong is in an episode like Episode 6, where we get to meet Morpheus' sister, Death, and we go on a journey with her as she encounters various different individuals who are meeting the Angel of Death, and we all know what that means. It puts us through the up and down emotions of the reality that death can come at any time for anyone, and it's never easy. But that is only half of the story. What would it be like for a person who was given the opportunity to live forever without having to experience death? And the assumption is anyone who was like that would eventually just say, I give up, I want to die. But that is where the whole story turns on its head, with Hob Gadling very much appreciating the fact that he will never die because he knows that he can always fix or solve his problems because he has as much time as he needs. And it's in episodes like that where I think the theme-driven nature of its storytelling come through strong. However, if the themes don't resonate with you of any given episode, it might make you feel like you kind of missed out, or you might bow out of the show because it's not really resonating with you anymore. But I think that it is worth finishing the entire season and making that judgment after 10 episodes. But my biggest critique of the show is that I feel like its peak moments struggled to satisfy. There are two climactic points in the show where story arcs come to a close and they wrap up. That's in episode 5 and episode 10. And I think both of these struggle a little bit to satisfy because they're over extremely quick. And I don't think this is a mistake from the show, but this is just the way that the story is meant to be told. This is an artistic choice, and I'm not saying that it's bad. It just doesn't work quite as well for me as a climax that feels like our hero struggles a little bit more going head-to-head with his nemesis. Because I feel like the biggest challenge that Morpheus faces throughout the season actually happens in Season 1, where he's imprisoned by Roderick Burgess for 100 years. That's the biggest challenge that he faces and the hardest obstacle he has to get around because he just has to continue to endure for 100 years. Whereas the challenges when he goes up against John Dee and the Corinthian is more of just finding the guys rather than dealing with them once he confronts them. The challenge is in the investigation and finding out where the bad guys are rather than going head to head with them. And while I think that the diner scene in episode 5 and the cereal convention in episode 10 deliver on some of the most unsettling of moments that I've experienced in storytelling in a while, I think that the payoffs don't nearly give you the same type of reward that you would like to have had after experiencing 40 minutes of a lot of tension. In conclusion here, I thought that the Sandman Season 1 was entertaining and that it was worth a watch. I enjoyed the time that I spent with it, and there are some episodes that I really enjoyed. I think ultimately it struggled to really engage me in the overarching story because there really are two separate story arcs going on, and they're only really loosely connected. I do appreciate that it's not necessarily the conventional big budget project that's just trying to give you thrills and action and big set pieces, but really wants to tell a story that has meaning and conveys strong themes. The reality is, though, those themes aren't going to resonate with everyone, and not everybody is going to care. The Sandman might struggle to get a huge mainstream audience because I could definitely see people dropping out after they experience the slower pace in the first few episodes, but I do think it's worth sticking with, and I look forward to seeing a second season, and I'm hoping it's coming. So with all of those things said, my final score for the Sandman Season 1 is a 3 out of 5. I'm positive on it, and I give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for checking out this review. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to check out some of our long-form reviews and retrospectives, we have a podcast which you can find down in the description below. Subscribe to the channel if you want more fantasy and science fiction related content, but for now we're signing out, and I'll talk to you next time on Parallel Quest. Bye-bye.